So the next topic in this chapter is formal and informal organization. So when we talk about formal or informal organization, that means the arrangement in which people are working in an organization. So if this is an organization and here you have different departments, and in different departments you have staff working there, this staff may be organized in two ways. One is the formal structure of the formal organization, in which the management has decided who will do what task and how people will be arranged. But another organization which will be found can be seen during the lunch times, when people they leave their offices and come together at a place, and their relationships among themselves is dictated by social norms, friendships, interests, common interests, things like that, and not according to the original formal structure decided by the organization. So in any organization, there will be formal structure as well as informal structure as well, because humans are social animals and they need an informal structure also to nurture their relationships with each other. So formal structures will be discussed in another chapter, chapter number 2. But when we talk about informal organization, that means arrangement of people according to interests, friendships, how they bond with each other, and not according to the formal structure which is designed by the management. Informal organization means is a network of relationship that exists within an organization. Network of relationships, I would say these networks are social networks. So these social networks do not need any kind of formal structure to set up. Since we are humans, we interact with each other and we involve with each other. So that's why this structure is formed. So this network evolves over time and tends to arise through common interest, through friendships between members of staff. So here you do not follow any hierarchy. You do not follow departmentalization. The informal structure can result in a friendship of top level manager with a normal worker, with the floor level worker also. So here the basis of arrangement is not formal structure. It is common interest, friendship, and other human values. These relationships are often across divisions. There's no restriction as to division or any other structure. An informal organization will be present to some degree within all formal organization. No organization can all be formal. None of the organizations can be 100% formal, even if it is a military organization also. There's some degree of informal organization present within the formal organizational structure. So this is good for the organization, and it can turn out to be bad as well. Depends on how organization harness this relationship. So we'll take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of informal organization. Remember that all the talk which is happening right now is based on informal organization. For formal organization, we have another chapter to study. So informal organization has advantages of better motivation, because people tend to form groups which they like. They help each other not because of any monetary compensation, because of social values. They help each other, and that's why the whole team or the whole organization is better motivated if there's good degree of informal organization present. Better communication, because sometimes formal communication do not find itself easy to exist, and problems are difficult to pass on. The messages are difficult to pass on. Problems are difficult to be solved in that way. So better communication is there when communication is informal. It is faster, it's clear as well, and easily understandable when the communication is informal. So better communication can be there if informalization is existent. There's provision of social control as well, because the whole situation of informal organization is a social situation. So there can be better social control. But there are disadvantages as well. For a formal organization, if informalization increases beyond a certain level, it can result into inefficiency in the workplace. People will sit and chat and not work if there's too much of informalization. There can be opposition to change because people can organize themselves and resist change if there's informal organization existent within the formal organization structure. There's another disadvantage known as grapevine effect. So grapevine communication is a kind of communication which is informal in nature, and it spreads from one person to another, and without any structure, it spreads throughout the organization. The bad thing about rumors is that they spread very fast and they change with every step down the line in communication channel. So whatever is communicated from A to B can alter when B is communicating to C. And this is why the informal communication can pose a threat within the formal organization. This is known as grapevine effect because we don't know how the grapevine will move. In the same way, the grapevine communication is very difficult to predict how it will move and what fruits will it bear. So the grapevine effect, where potentially inaccurate information or rumors are spread. So inaccurate information and rumors are spread, and these are spread at a very fast, high rate through informal organization and can cause trouble within the formal structure, can cause losses as well. So that can be a disadvantage. And next disadvantage is conformity. There needs to be informal conformity for every step to be taken. So that again is a disadvantage of informal structure. So at one point you can say formal structure is advantageous as it results in better motivation, communication, and social control. But there are disadvantages also associated with informal organizational structure. But no organization can have 100% formalization. There has to be some level of informal organization within the formal structure. So you have a better and more elaborate discussion onto advantages and disadvantages here on this page. So kindly read it. TYO6, very easy. Try solving this. Now, the informal organization can either enhance or hold back the business. Yeah, that's true. Depends on the situation and how it is used and harnessed by the management. Managers need to be aware of the informal structure, and they should ensure that they adapt the formal structure to complement the informal one. So managers should ensure that no problem if there is an informal structure, but at times formal structure, at the times of need especially, formal structure should be more pressing. Management should also ensure that they maintain a looser formal structure so that the informal structure can also thrive and people get a sense of belongingness within the organization. They also need to ensure that very least they take account of the informal structure in decision making. So decision making should not be hampered or influenced by the informal structure. But yeah, if there are any areas which needs to be addressed in decision making and which seems to be important, then that can be included. So there can be informal groups. If a manufacturing department has split itself into two informal groups and output is in decline, the declining output could have nothing to do with the formal structure, but be due to the lack of integration of the whole division. So this you might be aware about such groupism. You might be seeing it in your colleges, in your other educational areas, or if you're part of an organization, if you're working as an intern or as an employee, you might have faced situations where groupism is there within the same division. So this can be due to lack of integration within the organization or within the division. Two groups can put their rivalry first instead of their work. And that will be a total loss for the organization. Rather than changing the formal structure, management could, for example, mix members of the two cliques or training courses and try and reduce the impact of informal organization. So management should know what to do. Management should mix up employees through training courses, through other activities, so that the informal groups can be dissolved and overall they form a singular team. So this is all about the chapter now. The major areas where you have to put your focus are these three: components, influences, and writers. The major area is writers. It is very important that you read it again and again. This is very important. So I'll try to revise it with you right now only. What we have studied in this chapter. So the first thing which we noticed in this chapter was what is culture. And then we talked about the components of culture. So first, culture. Culture was how things are done around, right? How things are done around. So things are done around is definition. It is a definition propounded by Handy. So Handy's definition was culture is how things are done around here. There's another definition, which is a bigger one. So there were only two definitions discussed here. Another definition was by Hill and Jones. It was talking about values and norms shared by people. Values and norms. So if a definition is there which consists of values and norms shared by people, so this was given by Hill and Jones. So these were the two important definitions. So this is first thing which we studied, that is definitions. Second area of study was, after definition, we studied about components. So B was components. Components were basically three kinds of components were there. Norms, symbolism or symbolic action, and shared values and beliefs. Norms means normal behavior. Symbols or symbolic actions. Remember that these things can differ from one organization to another, and these can be very different among organizations. So the third component was shared values and beliefs. These are the components of culture. Next thing which we studied about culture, it was the influences. So I would say things which influence culture. So if we have culture, it will be influenced by a large variety of things. Specifically, there are 6 identified areas. So those were size, technology, what else? History, what else? How diverse people are, or how diverse the organization is. So history, diversity, and ownership, how it is owned, what is the shareholding pattern, and age group, how old is the organization itself, or how old are the people running organization. That is age. So these were the 6 areas which had a bigger influence. So this list is not exhaustive. There were many other areas also which had an impact on the organization. So this was part C. Now, what else we studied in this chapter? We studied about different write-ups. So there are different writers, 3 writers. So the 3 writers were, first was Sheng, then we have Hofstede and Handy, these 3 people talked about different things. So let me write up those things. For example, Shine talked about different levels. He described different levels of culture. So according to him, there were 3 levels of culture. Things which were clearly visible, things which were not visible at all, and something in between. So things which were clearly visible were artifacts. Example, the dressing sense of people or their dress code, that is an artifact. Second was espoused value. These were basically the goals and objectives of organization, the strategies, slogans, right? These are all espoused values. These can also be identified, but on closer working with the organization. And the last thing was, which was unseen, kind of unwritten laws of land. So those were known as basic assumptions and values. According to Handy described types of culture. So he took inspiration from the Greek gods and described 4 types of culture. The 4 types were, you had power culture. So power culture was denoted by Zeus. Next you had role culture, denoted by Apollo. Then you had task culture. It was denoted by Athena. And last was person culture. It was denoted by God, the Greek god. So power culture focuses on one person. All the power is derived from one person. So generally a small organization, sole proprietorship in nature, have this kind of structure. The next was Apollo, role-based. So here there are positions created. It is more of bureaucratic in nature. And it is It can be described as a culture where job description are the guiding force for one. People's jobs are generally repetitive in nature. Next is task culture, denoted by Athena. So here, task is more important, and how it is done is not that important. Emphasis is on achieving the goals of a task at hand. So a lot of flexibility is required and expected. And person culture is one where generally everything exists for one person. It happens in case of individual professionals mainly. It exists to satisfy the requirements of a particular individual. So that's how we talk about 4 types of culture. So these were types of culture given by Handy. Last is cultural traits given by Hofstede. So traits, or we can say dimensions. So if you observe closely, all 3 are talking about different things about culture. So we can't make comparisons. When we talk about traits, there were again 4 kinds of traits. First was individualism versus collectivism. So individualism was more like where individuals are more focused on their individual performance and not of the group performance. And collectivism is where there's low degree of individualism, where the team works in a group and wants to be assessed as a group only. Second was uncertainty avoidance index, UA index. So if organization is having high level of uncertainty avoidance, means its UA index is high. That means people do not prefer to work with risk. They want repetitive tasks. Such an organization is more of bureaucratic in nature. If UA index is low, then that means people like risk. They want to work out of their comfort zone, right? Next is your PD index. So PD index is power distance index. Higher PD index means the individuals working in that organization have very less if impact on decision making process. They have very less participation. Low PD index means power distance is less. That means people have influence on the working of organization. So high PD culture means they expect to answer to powerful managers, and they do not expect to have any input, especially any democratic input into the decision making process. But low PD index means that participants of that organization have more democratic influence inputs on the decision making process. There was masculinity and femininity. So masculine kind of organization culture will focus more on work, but femininity in culture will have more focus on work-life balance. So there will be fixed working hours. There will be more gender equality in a feminine kind of organization. But in a masculine kind of organization, work, power, and success will be more focused. So these were different kinds of traits given by Hofstede. And after that, we studied about formalization and informalization in an organization. So we said that informal organization structure exists within a formal uh, organization structure, and it is very important also. It has its own advantages, like it motivates people, it provides more social control, and there is better communication if it is informal in nature. But there were downsides to informalization as well, like grapevine could be formed in communication, which can carry inaccurate information or rumors at a very fast rate. Organization can turn out to be very inefficient. There can be resistance to change, things like that. So that's what is covered in this chapter. Now you can try and solve some practice questions, TYU 7, 8, 9, and so on. And apart from that, you can also try questions from exam kit. So you have objective type questions from 35 till 46. Question 35 to 46. Only 11 questions from your exam kit you can try. That is your assignment.